with all this talk of the group of five, let's keep it rolling to what has quickly become one of my favorite things to do here, and what some people would like to throw that that O word around. I personally don't like to do that. I just say that we have this just longer period of time before we have meaningful college football games to look forward to again. That's just kind of how I look at it. We're less than 6 months away though, so we're fighting through it. We're going to be strong. Speaking of being strong, you could show me some resiliency and strength by just doing a couple of things real fast. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, especially if you made it this far in the podcast. If you made it this far, first of all, you're a real MVP, but that would really help me out tremendously in terms of getting this podcast out to more college football fans like yourselves that maybe are a little bit more on that die hard side. I would feel that you're probably a little bit more on that die hard side if you happen to find my channel in any capacity, right? So, what has quickly become one of my favorite things to do is that we have ranked every single FBS program going into the 2024 season. Now, this is different from ranking the team. I'm talking about the state of programs for each FBS squad and doing so using free criteria. It's on-field success over the last 5 years. So if you have not won too many games, you're not going to be very high up on this list. Not every win counts the same. I go more in depth with that with the previous one. There'll probably be like some kind of card that you can click on if you want more context of that from when we unveiled 121 through 134. We also take a look at your talent acquisition as well. What kind of players are you bringing in, not only through high school recruiting, but also through the transfer portal as well? What kind of caliber of player are you bringing into your program? And then finally, what is your stability and continuity at one of the most important aspects of a college football team, your head coach? Do you have the same head coach for more than a few years, or are you constantly rotating through college football head coaches? So we base these rankings on those three factors: on-field success, talent acquisition, and stability at the head coaching position. So last time out, we did 121 through 134. We unveiled those rankings. And now we're going to unveil a little bit more than that. We are going to unveil from 120 to 101. So we're rounding out the teams that are outside of that top 100. But before I do go into that too deep, though, I got an amazing question from one of you guys last night, actually. Brody hit me up on the YouTube channel asking if I did any research on Delaware. I'm interested to know where they would stack against current FBS teams if, pending their rise to the FBS in 2025. And I thought that was an awesome question. So I definitely wanted to cover that real quick. So for Delaware, Brody, and this is for you, my guy. I hope you're watching. So if Delaware was joining today, out of 135 teams, I would have Delaware at that 129 spot out of 135 teams. Now, Delaware is one of those teams that do have consistent FCS playoff success. They've been to multiple FCS playoffs the last 5 years. One thing that does hold them back and what they're going to have to prove is that can they get better in their talent acquisition? Because if they were to join the FBS today, their caliber of player that they're bringing in, either through the transfer portal or bringing in through high school recruiting, would be the worst in the FBS. And that would be the worst by a country mile. For concept, Delaware's average recruiting class, both high school recruiting and transfer portal combined over the last 5 years, has been tracking in the 190s, according to 247 Sports. So not only would they be in last in that regard, they would be in last by a country mile. Kennesaw State would be the next closest, but they were tracking in the 160s. They do also have a relatively new head coach that's been there for a couple of years. So Delaware, while they had good FCS playoff success, in order FCS and FBS are two different levels. It's a higher level of competition. So they could theoretically move up for sure if one, they can prove that they can have success at the FBS level, and two, if they could also at the same time recruit a higher caliber of player. And moving up to a more high profile division level will certainly help out with that. No questions about it. They would also be the only team in the state of Delaware that would have an FBS squad. So they could lean into that as well, the first U.S. state. But to answer your question, Brody, I would have Delaware in that 129 range. I would have them ahead of UMass, but I would also have them behind Temple at the exact same time. So 129 out of 135 if they were to make the jump today. But now we get into what is that top 120? What is 120 through 101? What is that actually looking like? So, without further ado, we will jump right back into it. Part number two. At 120, I have Sam Houston. Now, I'm sure a few of you guys would be surprised if I didn't have Sam Houston in that bottom 14. And when we talk about on-field success the last 5 years, what helps Sam Houston in this regard is that Sam Houston does have somewhat recent FCS playoff success prior to making that jump up to the FBS level. Back in 2020, they actually won a national championship at the FCS level. This was during that COVID season. And the COVID season could be seen with asterisks. You could do whatever you want, but all of those teams that competed at the FCS level had to deal with very similar things and had to deal with the similar adversity. So Sam Houston coming out on top of all of that is really a testament to what the current head coach of Sam Houston has in Casey Keeler. And this is also what helps Sam Houston out, even though their first season in the FBS was nothing to write home about. 3-9 is not anything to be too terribly excited about. And if it was just a more short-term thing, Sam Houston would be a little bit lower on this list. However, they do recruit at the higher level than any of the recent newcomers to the FCS. Jacksonville State, for example, Kennesaw State within their own conference, they recruit better than them, and they have continuity in Casey Keeler, who's been around for a longer period of time, so they have that continuity at the head coaching position. They just don't have that consistent on-field success yet at the FBS level. At 119, however, I have a team still in Conference USA, by the way, that it's been around for just a little bit longer in terms of higher end Division One football, and that is New Mexico State. Now, New Mexico State has enjoyed a couple of years of success under Jerry Kill. Jerry Kill actually led the Aggies to their first 10-win season in a really long time. Since 1960, that was the last time that New Mexico State has won 10 games or more in a single season. But Jerry Kill is gone. He is no longer the head coach of the Aggies. He did step down from that position because of health reasons. So, and outside of Jerry Kill, New Mexico State has been that poverty program. So it's up to the Aggies to prove that they can maintain that level of success. And of course, trying to go about making sure that they're recruiting at a decent level. Whoever can New Mexico State do that? We'll just have to wait and see. But they are on their third coach in 5 years as well. Up next at 118, I have the Monarchs of Old Dominion. Old Dominion, a newer FBS program. They've been in the FBS since 2014. Old Dominion, on the other hand, they have a little bit more continuity than New Mexico State. But Old Dominion, they have not won a bowl game since 2016. They have not had a winning season since 2016 either. So this hurts Old Dominion in these particular rankings. They do recruit at a decent level, though, for a group of five school. They're tracking in the 110s, which is better than most of the teams that we have mentioned thus far. And their continuity is somewhat decent. They do have Ricky Ron still in charge of the program. he might be a little bit on that warm seat because he doesn't have that winning season as of right now. But Ricky Run is, we'll see if this could be a possible breakout year for the Monarchs. For now, I have them at 118. After that, we'll keep it down in the Southwest for 117 because I do have the Wolfpack of Nevada. Now, Nevada is on their third coach now in the last five seasons. They have called upon Jeff Choate to be the new head coach of the Nevada Wolfpack. This is his first time being a head coach at the FBS level, but has some experience in playing high-level FBS football. He was the co-defensive coordinator for Texas, that Texas team that did make the college football playoff. It was one of the best defenses in the entire country. But a tall task lays ahead of him because in the last 2 years, Nevada has not won more than 2 games. It is a far cry than what they have accomplished under Jay Norvell, who then would later go on and go and do bigger and better things. Nevada also not recruiting at a terribly high level either. They are in the 110s as well. So Nevada is my 117 for those reasons. Speaking of Conference USA, we now go to Mid-Tennessee State. The Blue Raiders are now 116 in my rankings. Now, Mid-Tennessee State, they did say goodbye to Rick Stockstill. He was the longtime head coach. He was there since 2006. He was let go following this season. Middle Tennessee State, one of those more difficult places to win at. His recruiting classes are in the 114 range over the last 5 years. So their caliber of player is also not very high. They are also breaking in a new head coach in Derek Mason, who used to be the head coach of Vanderbilt. So he does know Tennessee well, but Mid-Tennessee State, not a very highly regarded program at the moment. At 115, I do have the Golden Flashes of Kent State. Now, Kent State, if we were just talking about last year, poverty program. Worst team in the country last year, but we're not ranking teams. We're ranking programs. And this team has, been devastated by the transfer portal, especially after Sean Lewis did leave Kent State to take a coordinator job at Colorado. Kenny Burns is there, was retained in spite of going 1-11. Has to be a proven year, has to have his team at a higher level this year if he does want to keep his job. Kent State also does not recruit very highly, in the 112s over the last 5 years in terms of average recruiting ranking. The MAC is looking for Kent State to get out of that doormat for sure. Following at 114, and this could come for a little bit of a surprise seeing this team early, South Alabama. South Alabama is here at 114. Now, I do want to say that many of these rankings, they were very razor-thin margins for sure. Absolutely razor-thin. Now, South Alabama does have a little bit more success overall than what we've seen from Kent State. They do recently have a 10-win season under Kane Warmack. But South Alabama is also on its third head coach in the last 5 years. Kane Warmack going to go and taking a coaching job at a different school. He's also an assistant, I believe, at a much bigger program. The name does escape me. They do have a new head coach in Major Applewhite. He was head coach at Houston for a few years, and he was okay. He wasn't great by any means. He was fine. 15-11 overall in his 2+ years at Houston. Has been doing other stuff since then. He was an analyst at Alabama. Actually was an internal hire, so he is familiar with the program. Coaching stability really has killed him. Also, their caliber of recruit that they're bringing in is also outside the top 100. Also in the Sun Belt at 114, I got Texas State. Texas State just made their first bowl game in program history. Texas State also winning their first bowl game in program history as well. They had their best season ever under GJ Kinn and a respectable 8-5 record. But before that, this was not a program that was flying high. They were a doormat in the Sun Belt for the last 4 years. And yes, this season went really well for the Texas State Bobcats. It's now a matter of, can GJ Kinn maintain that longevity in terms of success in San Marcos, Texas. They have been playing pretty well in the portal. It is trending upward. Their caliber of player is still in that top 100. And Texas State has also went through a couple of coaches as well. At I believe 112. Am I losing count? Oh, okay. So it is 112. At 112, I got UNLV. UNLV, another one of those teams that had its best season in years. And I'm talking about in years. The last time that UNLV has won more than 9 games was 1984. I was not alive. I was not an idea when UNLV was that relevant. They have Barry Odom, and Barry Odom did stick around for right now, but they went through a couple of coaches before him over the past few years. Tony Sanchez, Marcus Arroyo, they were also in the doormat before that. So kind of the same circumstance as what we talked about with South Alabama. The difference between UNLV and Texas State, South Alabama, for example, is that UNLV does handle recruiting better. They bring in a higher caliber of player. They actually trend in the 90s compared to Texas State, South Alabama, who's outside of that top 100. So that's the biggest difference there. Moving on next, we got Bowling Green and the Bowling Green Falcons. This MAC team comes in at 111. Now, Bowling Green has had the same head coach over the last 5+ years. Scott Loafer, he's still here as the head coach. Actually, it's taken him to the Quick Lane Bowl the past couple of years. Bowling Green, one of those programs that doesn't have that high watermark. They don't have that high upside, being not only the little brother with Ohio State and Cincinnati in their backyard, but some would say this is not even the best MAC school, and rightfully so, in the state of Ohio. So they're not even the best G5 school in Ohio at the moment. So they have their work cut out for them for sure. They portal outside and recruit outside of the top 110. They just don't have a lot of upside, but that coaching continuity does help them out. Up next, I got the Charlotte 49ers coming in at 110. Now, Charlotte does not have the same level of success as what we have seen from Bowling Green. In the past 5 years, they have only been to one bowl game. That was in 2019 when they lost that Bahamas Bowl. Will Huey is gone. Biff Poggi is now in charge of this American program. And has some interesting things going on for its time, but Charlotte does not have any sort of success. They started their program 9 years ago. What does help Charlotte, however, is that they do recruit within that top 100, so their talent acquisition is better than most of the programs that we've already talked about. Charlotte does find itself here at 110 until they can have that consistent success. Speaking of teams that are looking for that consistent success, though, is the Rice Owls, and maybe they're starting to get that under Mike Bolgren. Mike Bolgren has been around since 2018, so they do have continuity. However, they haven't been that great, and maybe it's just a realization of them realizing who they are necessarily. They've been to 2 consecutive bowl games. They did lose both of those bowl games, so they have not had a winning season since 2014, when they did actually end up winning the Hawaii Bowl. Their recruiting is also not that great as well, outside of the top 100. But they do have that coaching continuity, which does allow them to be ahead of Charlotte. At 108, however, I have San Jose State, and shout out to Brent Brennan. Brent Brennan done an excellent job at San Jose State, and shout out to the San Jose State administration for being patient with this guy. I mean, his first 2 seasons there, he went 3-22, could have easily pulled the plug after that, but they stuck with him and it worked out. They made bowl games in 3 of their last 4 seasons. However, Brent Brennan is no longer there, and that hurts them in this particular ranking. The former Navy head coach Ken Natolo, who was at Navy for an extremely long time, he's now the new head coach at San Jose State, so he does have Group of Five experience and knows how to get to conference championship games at the Group of Five level. San Jose State, however, does not bring in a very high caliber player at all, outside of that top 100 as well. So that hurts San Jose State. They are at 108. Following San Jose State, we got the Hurricanes of Tulsa. The Golden Hurricanes do come in at 107. They have a relatively new head coach in Kevin Wilson, which from some of the comments that I saw on Twitter, seems like Kevin Wilson is not a big NIL guy. So not as high on him, but it is what it is. He is part of the American Conference, though. And his team does recruit at that 106. So that is slightly higher than what we've seen from San Jose State. So that's why they're ahead of San Jose State. They have not had a winning season in the past couple of years. Their 2020 and 2021 seasons do lift them up to a degree. After that, we got 106, and I got Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern, another relatively new program in the FBS. They were there since 2014. That was their first FBS season, and relatively successful in terms of getting to bowl games. They have actually been to bowl games 4 of the last 5 seasons. So the on-field success is actually solid. What does hold back Georgia Southern, in like many of programs on this list, is that they bring in a not very high caliber of player outside of that top 100. They've also have gone through a couple of coaches. Clay Helden is only in his 3rd year and has not yet turned in a winning season. Following Georgia Southern, I got Ball State coming in at 105. Ball State, another one of those programs, kind of like the Bowling Green of Indiana. They know who they are, and it's a solid program. They have a longtime head coach in Mike Neal, who's been there since 2016, been to a couple of bowl games of recent, the COVID year, which actually they were ranked in the top 25 at the end of the season. Fun fact of the day. But ever since that COVID year, they have not been able to post a winning season. Obviously, they do also struggle with bringing in quality players as well, which does hold them back. One team that doesn't have that same exact excuse, though, is Louisiana Tech, and they come in here at 104. So they bring in a much, I wouldn't say much higher, but certainly a higher caliber of player than what Ball State brings in, because they are in a richer environment. However, they have not been able to capitalize off of that. They have not had a winning season since 2019, so that was before COVID. They are now on their 2nd head coach in Sonny Cumbie, who might be on the hot seat as he's posted 2 consecutive 3-9 season as well. So lots to prove for Louisiana Tech in a weakened Conference USA. And even though I'm saying these things about Louisiana Tech, ironically, we have them as the 3rd best program in Conference USA. We just started this series last week, so it just gives you an idea of really a lot of programs in Conference USA trying to go and prove themselves. Same could also be said for Eastern Michigan, who I have at 103. Now, Eastern Michigan has made constant bowl appearances in the last 5 years. 4 of their last 5 years, they've been in bowl games. They have not been able to necessarily win those bowl games, most notably that 68 Ventures Bowl that ended in a blowout, and then their guys ended up in a fight. Not a good look at all. What's also not a good look is their ability to recruit. They really can't recruit. They're outside of the top 100. And yeah, they don't really have any big time wins either. They also, finish with a losing season as well. So Eastern Michigan, they're an okay program in the MAC, but not much to not much from home to report from that aspect. 102. I got the University of Southern Mississippi out in the Sun Belt. Now, USM is not had the upside of the last 5 years. They've only had two winning seasons in the past 5 years, been to a couple of bowl games. They've also had a couple of different coaches. Jay Hobson was there for a little bit, and then Will Hall is going to be in his fourth year. Interesting to see how Will Hall does with primarily his players in this fourth season as the head coach of Southern Miss. They do recruit as a reasonably high level. They are just outside of the top 90 when it comes to talent acquisition, when accounting for both the transfer portal and also accounting for high school recruiting as well, which is especially important at the group of five level. In rounding out your group for now at 101, I got the Chippewas of Central Michigan. Now, Central Michigan does get the benefit of having that head coaching continuity because Jim McEwen, he's been there since 2019. He's going into his 6 seasons, led the Chippewas to a couple of bowl games. So even though they don't recruit at the same level as Southern Miss, the coaching continuity does push them ahead of the Golden Eagles because of that. They also have had slightly more success on the field as well. Unlike Southern Miss, they have posted 2 wins of 8 wins or more during the last 5 years. So that's why I have Central Michigan at 101. But this does round out my group four right now of 101 through 120. I'm curious, man. Was there names? Was there a particular program that surprised you that's down this low or you're disappointed with? Let me know your comments for sure down below. And as well as let me know like what program you expected to be down here, but haven't necessarily seen yet in terms of what some would call poverty programs.